Welcome back to Stories from the Woo. I am your host, Ambitious Angelo. Today we are again at Havana Nights here on Park Avenue, and I have a special guest here today, Mr. Michael O'Brien, the former city manager of Worcester. Mr. O'Brien, welcome to Stories from the Woo.
Ambitious Angelo, I'm excited to be here. Thank you. Excited to be at Havana Nights. Julio and the team making this investment in Worcester and all the rave reviews just is another exciting milestone.
Well, Mr. O'Brien,
Sure.
thank you so much for being here. I know that
Honored.
you have a very busy schedule. You still have a real life job. You have a 9 to 5 that you have to attend to. And
Like 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. probably.
oh, it's 5 to 9, not 9 to 5.
That's right.
That's incredible. So let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? How was your upbringing? Things like that.
Oh, again, humbled and honored to be on your program. I'm a Chicopee. I come from Chicopee, a family of 11. My mom and dad, Joyce O'Brien and Joe O'Brien, raised us all in a wonderful way. Taught us responsibility, self-reliance, gave us all the kind of moral fiber we needed to get through life. Embedded faith in our lives and, taught us right and wrong and made sure that we understood that we ourselves are kind of the masters of our destiny. And so God bless them both. They're now looking down upon me and guiding me in my life. And so I was the middle. I was 5 from the top, 6 from the bottom. So classic middle child. I was the negotiator. I was the protector. And I was always trying to kind of figure out how to get the best out of that situation, kind of social Darwinism, right? Survival of the fittest. And so I think that's probably the best grooming I've had when you put all that together for my life after I left home.
11 siblings.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
4 girls and, 7 girls and 2 boys. 4 boys.
7 girls, 4 boys.
Yeah.
And you were, out of the boys, were you like the oldest, middle?
I am second to the oldest.
Second to the oldest.
Yeah.
So you have mostly older sisters.
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been
Wonderful
tough as well.
people, strong women, and all doing famously in the world, kind of cut from the same cloth.
Awesome. What was Chicopee like while you were growing up in those times? Was it homey? Was it neighborhoody? Was it urban?
I would tell you that the reason why I adapted so quickly and fell in love with Worcester is that it reminded me so much of my hometown, just on a bigger scale. Chicopee is kind of post-industrial, and Ames Sword Factory and other Cabottville. They were manufacturers that employed most of the community, Uniroyal Tire. And so they went through the same kind of upheaval that Worcester did and kind of rethinking, recalculating, and repositioning the city. So it had all the same qualities. And neighborhood was strong, and it was safe. And it was just one of those places that you could grow and do so in a way that gave you the tools for your future life. And between that, I was avid in sports, particularly soccer, and so I played that through all my youth, and that gave you all the tools of camaraderie and teamwork and all the action of sports that I absolutely adored. And so that's just another life tool that you kind of carry with you. But for that, you just kind of met lots of different people in the community because you're playing against other sections of the city and then you're also playing throughout the region. And so it just gave you kind of an anchor as a kid through sports.
Now, you grew up in a time where tablets, internet, YouTube, gaming, online gaming and stuff that these kids nowadays, as they're growing up, they don't have, right?
Sure.
What did you do for fun? How did you stay out of trouble? Did you find yourself in trouble growing up, not having these things?
no longer in public office. I can speak freely. You know, we all go through phases, and I had a wonderful childhood, wonderful youth, and I again played sports through those relationships, formed strong friendships, and you know, it would be everything from you know, finding the gang and hanging out at a local park to going to a local event or whatnot. Oftentimes, you made your own fun. So you'd pick up stickball, you'd find just some activity, and occasionally you kind of drifted into the places where you shouldn't go, and rightfully so. The neighborhood functioned as its own police force, so the parents
Yeah.
would be the corrective action that took place, and by the nature of the neighborhood, like all mothers were looking out for all the kids. So you didn't need the PD to get you right back on course. You'd get it by the ear, and then you'd end up spending some time in solitary confinement in your home. So, yeah, it got you back on the straight and narrow.
Mm. Are there any key like obstacles or things that you had to overcome that you remember from childhood?
Obviously, at this age,
Mhm.
I'm 57. You look back fondly over all those years. You know, I feel really blessed in my life because I had all my older siblings that kind of helped me through my academics, and they all staged the relationship of the O'Briens to the rest of the world. So I was just one more O'Brien, and so for all that, I would say wasn't hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, I look back, and if anything, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life,
Mm.
and I probably still don't at
Mm.
57. And so that's a struggle
Yeah.
as the pressure comes down to say, what are you going to do with yourself? I think that was probably my greatest challenge, you know, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
by the grace of God, I kind of fell into these various roles that made best use of my skills and gave me a career that, you know, has been rewarding beyond belief.
Mm. I love that because I felt that pressure growing up as well, where I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I wish someone would have told me, right? Because you just said you don't know what you want to do now, right? So I feel like life is it. We have this false assumption or
Yeah,
expectation, right? That you're gonna get to a certain age or stage in your life, and you're gonna have it all figured out. And what they don't tell us is life is a game of figuring it out
yeah,
every day, every morning, every hour as it comes, every day we just got to figure it out and what's next. And I
yeah,
think that as a youth, they're in these critical stages where
sure.
they feel so much pressure of like,
More so these days.
yeah, especially with social media
Yes.
and the internet and things like that. But
Yeah.
life is a game of figuring it out, guys. Don't. My man here is 57 years old, well accomplished, and he's still figuring it
Very
out.
nice.
So,
Yeah. Really. And I think the tools you need are what you'll be doing as a youth in each and every day.
mm,
You know, making the right decisions,
yeah.
thinking through and listening
Mm,
more than speaking as you try to figure out the nuttiness of life. And I would say absorb as much as you can
yeah.
and dive into as much as you can to find out where those likes and those passions are,
Mm,
and make mistakes,
yeah.
as many as you can, because you learn from all those. And I can tell you, I got like a Chinese scroll of mistakes. I got play them out in my head every day, but it makes me who I am
That's right.
today, and it keeps you grounded.
That's right. That's right. So you went to high school. What did you want to be, or what you had an idea of what you wanted to try at that time?
I'll be honest, I didn't.
Mm,
I went into economics at UMass Amherst in business. And as I pursued that, I realized I had no passion for it. I could do it and I
yeah.
was excelling at it, but I had no passion for it. So I switched into architecture
Hmm.
and business and landscape architecture. And I found a passion in this idea of the three dimensions and having visions of what a space or place or site could be, and then bringing it to fruition.
Mm,
And I felt that there was some creative side, the left side of the brain or the right side of the brain, I'm a lefty, that intrigued me. And
mm,
so from that point forward, I fell into that type of work once I graduated. And that's what gave me my start. I started on Cape Cod working for a development firm. Did that for a couple of years. I then transitioned to Western Massachusetts and was doing similar work. And that was engaging in sales. It was designing and coming up with what something could be for a client or a corporation, and then implementing it, having it physically built. And that's how I kind of made my way to Worcester.
Okay.
I was doing a project here in the city that was a park. It was Crompton Park. I was working for a firm that did a lot of everything, and so we did some public bidding, and we bid on the park, and that's how I got introduced to Worcester. And advertisement in the back of a local newspaper when I was sitting at a D'Angelo's on Belmont Street. It's not there anymore, and there was an ad for a associate planner or project manager. And I didn't know anybody in Worcester, and I circled it. I said, I'm gonna do this. And I don't know what happened and why. It was like divine intervention. And then there was a fellow at City Hall by the name of Jeff Vassar, who I was working with on the Crompton Park project. He was kind of supervising it for the city, and he encouraged me. He says, "Oh, you should really apply for this," and I did. And I came in, I got hired. I was shocked because I didn't have any political connections. I didn't know anybody. I got hired at the Office of Planning and Community Development, and the rest is history. I went from being an associate project manager, then a senior project manager, then fast forward commissioner of parks, fast forward city manager. And I couldn't have told you that that day I circled that ad,
Yeah.
that all that would have happened. And so sometimes in life you get pleasantly surprised by what gets presented to you. You get nervous about making a decision that could, have all types of implications, but you just kind of trust your instincts and go. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Would you, if you were to go back, because it sounds like you were pursuing initially a paycheck, right? And then you found that you had no passion
That's right.
for what you were doing in that
That's good.
field.
Yeah.
And then now you're able to get a paycheck for your passion.
Yes, that's correct. Again, government to me and service to the citizens, services to residents, it's food for the soul, and I found that to be extremely satisfying. I was fortunate because it also came with a check, but the rewards from that work. I mean, look at there's dark days, and there's days you're done at the end of the day and you don't want to come back.
Yeah.
But you get recharged with a good night's sleep and you come right back at it, and the little rewards. It could be just someone calling your office and said, thank you for the sidewalk has been that way for 20 years and my husband's tripped 4 times and you fixed it, through to big initiatives that you were able to put together through a coalition of good people that just knew that Worcester had potential. So yeah, food for the soul.
Awesome. We're going to dive into some of those big projects after our next break here. But what would you say before we go on this break? What would you say to somebody who is at that crossroads, right? They're maybe either entering college,
Sure.
or they're just getting out of college, and they figured out that maybe that what they thought they were passionate about, they actually don't have a passion for, or they've been groomed by their family or society, whatever, to go a certain way. But they're at that crossroads of picking passion or paycheck.
Yeah. Tough decision, right?
Yeah.
In society, the nature of making sure you can have a living to put a roof over your head and all, makes that a tough one. But I will tell you that the best thing anybody could do is soul search and listen to yourself, be true to yourself, do research, test the waters. And I honestly believe you can make the money you think you're going to need in life if you take your passion and put it to work. And you're going to excel at that, and you're going to be noticed at that, and you're going to be promoted, or you're going to be able to be sufficient enough to start your own business. And so I honestly, for me, it was trusting my instincts. And I think that's an important part of it. If your gut's telling you, I want to do this, do it. And I will tell you, I had many sleepless nights when I made that choice. I was scared because it was a pay cut in half. Just about to marry my current wife, and even her parents were like, "What's wrong with this kid? He just took a salary cut in half to go work for a city, and he was, doing so well in the private sector." So there was a lot of pressure there, but I just trusted my instincts, and I found every time I've gone against my instincts, I paid for it, like one of those mistakes. Because your gut is actually a good indication of between mind and body what the world is telling you to do.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. We're going to dive into that. My gut is telling me that I'm hungry. All right. I haven't eaten yet. It's a little early here, but we have some incredible appetizers coming on up. The chef is going to come over here. He's going to introduce the food that we're about to eat, and we're going to have a word from our sponsor. So sit right there. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We're back. We got some amazing drinks here, and I think we got some food coming out. Hope you brought an appetite.
Havana Nights.
Nice. All right. Well, guys, so these are the Quattro Cuban fritters. It's probably our most popular appetizer. It has ham, chorizo, and bacon in the fritter itself. And then the Quattro Queso, the 4 cheese sauce, is Gouda, mozzarella, Parmesan, and blue cheese.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, kidding me? My mouth is watering looking at it.
Yeah, no, it's a savory.
Between that and the mojito, I think, it's going to be a long afternoon.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it is a Cuban restaurant, so, you know, it would have been not right for me to not show you guys a mojito. So, again, that's a very simple drink. It's about an ounce of simple syrup, muddled mint, lime, and rum. Can't go wrong. And then this cocktail here is actually going to be featured on our new fall beverage menu. It's called the Orange Julio, after Julio Roque, our owner.
Yeah.
It's based off of an Orange Julius, so it's basically like an orange creamsicle. It's got Grand Marnier, it's got orange curacao, a little bit of Havana Club rum, it's a Puerto Rican rum, vanilla simple, lemon, and muddled orange. It's delicious.
Great honor having.
Both very crushable.
Great honor having a drink named after you.
That's right.
Oh, absolutely.
That's pretty special.
There's also a Corrales mojito. I don't know if
Oh,
you've
I heard about
one.
that.
There's a
Yeah.
Corrales mojito.
Alex Corrales.
Yeah, Alex Corrales. Well, he's a regular in here, and obviously we want to take care of our locals, so
Amen.
we do what we can.
Great job.
to adjust
Yeah,
our
it's
so.
fascinating.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Joe here is the director of beverages. If you ever come here, make sure you get your drink done by Joe here. Joe, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you,
guys.
Joe.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
appreciate it. Of course.
All right, Miss O'Brien, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to dive in on these, all right? These,
Croquetas.
yes, these are a Cuban tradition. Living in Miami, I used to munch on the ham and cheese ones all the time with these.
wow.
These are awesome.
Are you kidding me? Let's order 24.
Wow.
So good. Man, oh man. I don't want to ever leave.
Right?
Yeah.
This is awesome. No, just the filling on the inside between the bacon, the chorizo, and then you add in the 4 cheese dip. This is what makes it a game changer right here. Wow, these are really
Yeah,
good.
no question. Yeah. It's reset my afternoon. I'm all I'm going to be thinking about is these things.
All right, let's try the Orange Julio. Cheers, sir.
That's right.
Thank you.
3 cocktail lunch.
Ooh.
Oh yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Wow. Joe, you outdid yourself on this
Yeah.
one. I love this. It reminds me of Morir Soñando, which is a Dominican drink, but it's a little bit less sweeter. Is that vodka that I taste in there?
So it's Grand Marnier, orange curacao, and rum.
Rum. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You're a meld of like a mad scientist and Merlin and a magician. I think.
That's how I describe myself.
No, what about your drink? What are you
Fabulous.
tasting here on this mojito?
A little bit of everything. I'd say it could taste a little bit of the rum, lemon juice, lime. Just great.
Yeah, the orange, it's not too overpowering. Usually I'm a little skeptical when it comes to like fruity drinks, but this is perfect. And like I said, it reminds me of that Morir Soñando, that famous Dominican drink. So thank you guys at Havana Nights. Thank you for the whole crew.
Thank you.
For the food, the drinks, the having us here and hosting us here. So let's get back to our story, because this is Stories from the Woo, and we have
Yep.
the former city manager, the man that is accredited for the Worcester Renaissance. Okay, Mr. O'Brien here was a city manager from 2004 to 2014. So we're going to dive into his tenure as the city manager, and there's some big projects that he's credited for, being the Worcester Galleria breakup, what we knew as the fashion outlets downtown. Also, the new North High School, the brand new building that North High has today was under your tenure as well. So let's dive into, first and foremost, how did you get to being the city manager?
Well, that's a story unto itself.
Yeah, because most people think that a city manager is an elected position. I mean, it's an elected position. So how did you get into being what's the word that assigned? No,
Yeah, appointed.
Yeah. How would you get
So
appointed?
it's again, it's a real fascinating story. To give you some depth to it, I was fortunate to serve in a variety of capacities in city government. Really blessed. Started, as I mentioned, in the Office of Planning and Community Development. The city manager then, Tom Hoover, asked me to go assist the Parks, Rec, Cemetery, and other duties as assigned commissioner. So I went up there and started to put some structures in place and help the then commissioner right the ship. He had suffered a bunch of budget cuts through the years, and rightfully so, he was just hanging on. So it was new resources, and I was part of that new resource infusion to Parks. And I went up there, and within a certain period of time, I became commissioner. So did 7 years as commissioner and was working very closely with the then city manager, working very closely with the then council in Parks, Rec, and Cemetery, and other duties as assigned. You really get to know the city. You're in every neighborhood. You're meeting with neighborhood groups. I'd say the tougher politics in the city is little leagues and youth sport leagues. That's where you get that's where you cut your teeth.
Yeah.
And so there was some dissatisfaction on the council for the then city manager, and they made a decision to fire him. And that left a gap of having no city manager. When that took place, I was getting phone calls to say, would I serve as acting city manager while they went out for an intergalactic search? It was a big decision. It was, I didn't sleep much, couldn't hold much food down, and my wife, I told her, just don't answer the phone and close the door.
Yeah.
And I had to really think about it because I had two young daughters at the time. They were like 1 and 2, and I had a wife, and I had a secure job as commissioner. But if I took this acting city manager role, the council could fire me, and I would have nothing. And that was a little bit scary. So, but talking to my wife and doing some soul searching, talking to my great friends here in Worcester and getting advice and, a little bit of faith and prayer, took the job as acting and did that for about 10 months. And the council voted to make me permanent. And I was permanent city manager from that time on. And that's the 10-year tenure I had in that role. But it was, acts of fate. It was unique opportunities. It was trust your gut, like I said earlier, and seek counsel. And here I am. I had a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Worcester is a little bit different than most towns and cities.
Yeah.
Can you explain how do we have a city manager? Why is that necessary? And how is that different than because I feel like most people think that the mayor's the person who is responsible of everything and runs the show and stuff like that. But what makes us different from other cities and towns in Massachusetts?
Back in the late 40s and early 50s, 1950s, there was a movement across the country, really pushed by the business community, but also because of what was perceptions of potential mischief or graft in government, that it become much more structured like business. And so in Massachusetts, there's 4 communities that are city manager form of government. It's called Plan E. And there are 5 or 6 different plans that you can pick from the state constitution of what each town or city be managed by. So Worcester voted to do Plan E back in the 50s. Plan E government basically says that the city manager is appointed by the council, and the city manager runs the day-to-day, runs the budget, runs all those activities for the city. And the council, with the mayor at the helm, is the board of directors. So all major policies, financial decisions, all those have to be recommendations to to the city council, and they approve or won't approve those items. And so think of it as the city council is macro over the city and setting vision, direction, and the city manager putting the horsepower behind that to get things done and make sure we're providing the basics of services, to the community, everything from trash removal to street sweeping and things that are important to average citizens, schools that are well funded. And then you're also working day to day on things like economic development, right? City wants to change, they want to create new energy, and so you're trying to bring the right partnerships together to make those things happen. And spent a great deal of time on all those facets of the job, from budget to trying to rein in costs, to negotiating with the unions, to making sure there were dollars for the schools, to the list goes on and on. It's a pretty complex job, but I was blessed during my tenure. I had known so many talented people in city government through my early years, the first 10, and knew the type of people I could count on in my years as city manager. And then when I took the job, there was that mutual respect. And there's just so much talent that people were so dedicated to the city. And I inherited that more or less. And it made my job so much easier.
Talk to me about the common outlets. Why was it unsuccessful?
Sure.
Why did we have to, break it up and make a street in the middle now?
Sure.
All of that, where we are today. What was the issue back in 2004 in that era? Why did we make that decision to remove the common outlets?
So that's another complex story. I'll try to keep it simple. Back in the 70s, early 80s, across the country, there was this movement of urban renewal, and call it a fad. And it's unfortunate in some ways, well-intentioned but misguided. And what it did is it saw certain neighborhoods or certain areas as blight. And all that wonderful architecture and all that kind of fabric of the community just wasn't necessarily what they saw as progress.
Gotcha.
And it was real hard work to kind of make those areas change. And so they were bulldozed. And so that area of the Worcester Common Outlet was kind of thought that way and felt that way. So they did urban renewal and knocked it all down. At the same time, the rage was malls, right? This new thing where it's an enclosed environment, people can walk around and shop. And that was a fad. And so Worcester caught on at the very end of those fads to decide to put in a mall in that blighted area, that urban renewal area. And interestingly enough, at the same time, there was urban sprawl happening, suburban sprawl, new communities, new places to live, new places to shop outside of the big cities. And so at the time the mall was being built, you had competition outside. It was free parking outside the city, free parking and fancy malls. And
like what we have in Millbury, like the Blackstone Valley.
That's great. Or Solomon Pond.
Solomon Pond.
And so you put those two things together, and the forces were working against Worcester. So the mall opened. It had a short span of success. And then it was, because of its short span of success, people got around it. There was a new owner, the Carps, and they infused it and called it an outlet mall. And that was a fad at the time. They were starting to see these things pop up in the state where there were discounted kind of name brand products that, are brought to these outlets and trying to get them in a secondary market out to consumers. And then that had a stretch where it was relatively successful. But then Rentham opened up, and you had Kittery, Maine, and you had all these other forces at work, and that started to sputter. Eventually, it sputtered to a point where it was just basically boarded up. There was a few things in there like Applebee's and the like, but there was nothing happening. Enter Tim Murray, then city councilor, before that library board trustee. He was then councilor, and he was railing about the fact that there was nothing happening at this mall, and it was this mega block that kind of cut the city's arteries off. And so that started with Tim, and when he got elected mayor, Ray Mariano decided he wasn't going to run anymore, and Tim Murray ran a strong campaign and was elected mayor. And he came in with fire and brimstone. He wanted change, and I was part of that effort, Tim, in wanting change. And we had a wonderful friendship for a decade before that, so there was a trust there. But I guess he's a fire and brimstone guy. We had our differences, and boom. But that just brought more respect back and forth. We both stood our ground. And he said, we're going to do something. So that was privately owned by Cigna, an insurance company that had the notes on that mall. And Tim worked with Cigna. He worked with them, and he put an RFP out, a request for proposals. And that resulted in a developer at the time that wanted to take this project on, and we began a quest to redevelop that area. And some of the main themes were, let's bring back that street and block pattern that existed before urban renewal, where the east side and the west side were reconnected by Front Street, and that intimate that block pattern that makes people want to walk around.
Yeah.
When you have mega blocks, it doesn't serve a purpose. You got walls that are blank, that are concrete. People don't feel safe. There's nothing going on. So it was really to do all that, and it was as much of a psychological problem to have this dead mall in the middle of the city as it was, an economic issue. So it was like a turning point. And I would say this: there was lots of people at the time that were saying, why? Why are you picking this for? There's problems with sidewalks, there's problems with streets, there's problems with schools. But sometimes you need to take on something bold, and you need to do something big. And I credit certainly Tim for that, pushing that. But then we worked in partnership to realize the dream, and give a confidence. What I found is that I loved the city as soon as I showed up, but there were people who had been here for generations that loved it with that same passion, but tended to point out all the things that went wrong over the last 40 years.
Yeah.
And so that was both a positive and a challenge, right? You've got to have to bring those residents along. So we had to do something bold, big, and get it done. And so that was the project. And we worked very closely with the Worcester State Delegation. We worked very closely with the governors at the time. They knew Worcester, second largest city in Massachusetts, had to be successful. And so with those deep relationships, those deep partnerships, and lots of good people working around it, we accomplished it and got it done. It's just something as a measure of pride. I don't take the credit for it. There was just so much positive energy around it. But it was just nice to be part of it, and understand that people cared that much about the community and were willing to take risks, because the greatest risk was to do nothing at all and expect that something magical would happen.
Yeah.
And so we had to get people in that measured risk space to say, we can do this. We can put the checks and balances in place. We can protect the public good, but we can do big things. And I'd say that it was just a wonderful time to be in that space. I mean, you still took your lashes, you still got the crap kicked out of you, but you knew you could do things that, could make substantial change.
How do you define success, right? Because talking to my good friend Eric Batista after he got
he's a good man.
After he got appointed a city manager, after being an acting city manager as well, it seems like we have this cycle of finding interim city managers and then appointing them as permanent ones.
That's we're members of the Actors Guild, actually. When you're doing that acting, you got to be in the union. So,
but we talk about how the city manager in public service really is a job that you can't really win at, right? Because you can't please everybody.
No.
Right. So as Michael O'Brien, right, and you lay your head at night and you go to sleep, what makes you feel like I was successful at my job because A, B, and C? Fill in those blanks for me.
Boy, that's a big, big question. Every day you start out with a goal, as I said, throw it out as soon as you walked in the office, but you'd keep your eye on what I would call the prizes, the things that you ultimately, from a vision and energy and direction of the community, kind of built up from all the public input. You just kept focused there. And so it didn't happen overnight. And you'd have to take setbacks, you'd have to take mistakes, you'd have to recognize that you couldn't do things expedited because government takes time.
Yeah.
And then you got there. And there was satisfaction each and every day because you made a microscopic move forward at times, but it was a move forward and it wasn't backwards.
Yeah.
And so that's what gives you the assurances that tomorrow's going to be a better day, even though you're so dejected when you walked out of there. I walk into my house, my wife, I wouldn't talk for like 45 minutes because I was just decompressing. Then all of a sudden I'd be myself, but it took a while to get rid of that weight that you carry.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, failing, using failure to push you forward and to grow off of that and go off of that. What's a famous failure that you have in that tenure that you can look back and be like, that moment shaped me. I'm glad that it didn't go the way that we expected or whatever the case may be, but I grew from this, I learned from this, or it showed me something valuable that I was able to carry on for the rest of my tenure.
So failure in city government. You're headstrong. You can't help it. Youth
Yeah.
makes you feel like you can conquer the world, and you don't have the seasoning of age and experience to
Yeah.
kind of tame that. So I came in. I think I was 37 years old, and so I was headstrong, and I was with headstrong Tim Murray, and I was pushing for resources. It's cyclical government, and what happened is we weren't going to get the kind of state support that we needed, and I wanted to retool the police department. I wanted to help retool some of the major departments. They needed help, and they had been through a series of budget cuts before I took over. So it was this idea of infuse, and start to manage the city like a business, right? And in that process, I came out of the gates, probably the second year, asking to raise taxes, to do that, to just do the right thing and get these departments back on track, to provide the services the community wants, and make the city a place that's a platform for progress. And I got my rear end kicked, and rightfully so. The public, I didn't define the issue before I came out with the proposal. I didn't shape the conversation. I didn't outreach to neighborhood groups and talk with the council. I just felt like this is the right thing and I'm going to do it, and you learn from your mistakes. And the intentions were good. The outcomes would have been fabulous, but you got to learn your place. And everybody has a say in the council and certainly the citizens. And they felt that was going to be, I think it was like maybe a 5% raise in taxes. And we had the capacity to do it in our finances, but it was just ill-timed and ill-planned, and I took my lashes, and I learned that there's going to be issues like this, but you've got to give the respect to the public and give the respect to the residents, and help them understand what the problem is, and talk to them in their own neighborhoods, talk to them in their language, to make them understand what the issues are, and then help them either support it or learn early that this is going to go nowhere. And I was just youth and charge, and I got my rear end kicked. It's all good though.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of people, they just want to focus on the positives, and without the negatives in our lives, then we can't grow on anything, right? If we always get everything right, so.
No, I never, that's not me. But I would also say that I was very fortunate to have wonderful relationships of people that would call me and provide advice. They would never tell me what to do, but they said, look, I understand you're thinking this. Let's sit and talk. And you'd have so many contacts from the days you started back in 1994. You'd have so many friendships and things built. You'd sit and listen, and you'd take that counsel, and you'd say, look, I gotta go back to the drawing table on this thing. And they're right. And it's okay to say that you're wrong, or you're not quite in the space that says it's good to go. That was a good thing. I would tell you, to this day, those friendships still exist, and they warm my heart. They're just wonderful people, and they care deeply about the city, and they were there for advice and counsel along the way.
It seems like in the last, I want to say 5 to 8 years or so, right? I feel like there's been a lack of just human respect, where it's like, hey, we might not see eye to eye on every topic or debate or whatever the case may be, but I can still respect you as a person, as my neighbor, as a fellow concerned citizen. I feel like we've lost that kind of respect for each other when we're just focusing on the issues that divide us.
I think you're so right. I was talking about Worcester with a dear friend yesterday, and we were on polar opposites on an issue. And she said to me, it's just refreshing that you're listening. Because it's getting, and that's on a national level too, the divisions, and the idea that you can communicate and deliberate, and you can, discuss and ultimately come up with a response is a good thing. That's democracy in action. But it's getting so polarized. People are so dug in; they're not listening anymore. Right? The key is listening, and I had to, strengthen that during my city manager years. Stop and listen before you come out with what you're going to say, and give everybody the respect and the benefit of the doubt that their opinion definitely matters, and you want to hear it. And I worry about democracy. I worry about the future at a local level and all the way up to the national level, because it's getting so divisive and so polarized that people aren't listening. They're not even respecting. And you just have to have a D or an R or something next to your name, and you're the enemy. I mean, it's bananas. And so respect is earned. And I think at a local level, you've got to do those types of things so people respect you because you've respected them.
Yeah.
It's not granted respect. I got a city manager title next to me. No, it's earned.
That's
You
right.
got to earn it.
That's right. That's right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. This is Stories from the Woo. I am your host, Ambitious Angelo, and we have the former city manager, Michael Bryan, with us here today. We will be right back. We're going to get some food, and we will continue on with Stories from the Woo with Michael Bryan. All right, guys, now it's time, my favorite time of the show. It's our time to eat our lunch. So, Chef, what do we got here today?
All right. So right here we have the pechuga de pollo, which is the grilled chicken breast.
Wow.
And we have our Cuban sandwich here. Some silverware for you.
I love it.
For the beans.
Chef, those croquetas were to die
Aren't they
for.
amazing?
To die for.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. So here what we have is your Cuban sandwich. We will do it however you want. No mustard, no pickles, the way you like it. And the best thing about it, we bake our own Cuban bread in-house. So we do about 250 loaves a week. Somebody comes in 2 or 3 times a week. He's rolling out the dough, making it. We do what's called a masa madre, so a mother. So it's a sourdough bread.
Yep.
We're making it from scratch every week. And then yours, you got your typical white rice, our homemade black beans, and then the chicken breast is marinated in orange and garlic and a little oil and just some really nice light flavors with some sauteed peppers and onions.
Unbelievable.
Awesome.
Great job.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Chef, thank you so much. We appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you, Chef.
Thank you.
You inspire me.
Thanks.
All right, let's dive into our lunch here. I've been waiting for this all day, guys. This is like I said, this is my favorite part about recording here at Havana Nights. Their incredible food, their staff, the quality, the freshness. As the chef said, they make this Cuban bread here in-house. That is unheard of. Yeah, that's not every day. So,
Wonderful.
I don't want to take away from our eating and stuff here. I know that this food is delicious. It's nice and hot. So we're going to wrap up our last segment here, and we'll get back to our food. So you finished being the city manager in 2014. You resign, and you take a job in the private sector.
Yes.
Back in development and real estate.
Yes.
What drove that decision?
My wife,
Okay.
really, and I give her such credit, she saw the politics changing. New faces on the council, desire for a new face, a new direction. And one knows after 10 years, the target grows on your back because you're saying no more than you're saying yes the entire 10 years. And some people can respect that, others can't. They see it as personal when it's not. You're trying to run a big city and do the right thing. And so it was the right time. And so my wife, for like years 8 through 10, when she saw me come home beat up, she'd say, come on, there's a world beyond this. And at the time, I met Arthur Wynn and Gilbert Wynn just in my travels. They saw some of my work as city manager, and I saw some of their work in the world of development, mixed income housing, food for the soul in so many ways, because you're helping society with a need, you're providing services to residents to serve a need. And so I saw it as a natural. And it started out with conversation, just informal.
Yeah.
What are you doing with the rest of your life? And then it's ramped up, and right around that year 10 to say we want to hire you. And that was another one. I remember sitting with my wife and saying, oh, I just need 2 more years. I'm going to change this. I'm going to get that done. I'm going to get this done. And she's like, no, you're done. Like, you don't lie to yourself. And I also went out to some of my trusted friends. And so it was time, time for change. The city needs a new face, new leadership, new direction. And so I made the jump, and not without sleepless nights, not being able to hold food down, but the instinct said, do it. Yeah.
What is it about real estate? Like, why is it so important? I'm a real estate agent myself, so I just dove into this new field of, past COVID and all of that.
Yeah.
So but why is real estate important to A, the individuals, and B, to our community?
Sure. Well, it's home is where the heart is, and high quality housing is a basic necessity for all. And you can see the stresses and strain in this current environment where people are without housing or in search of housing they can afford. And why is it so important? I think that's one of the main issues is a safe and healthy place to live. It's like one of the fundamentals of life. And then beyond that, when you talk about real estate, it's the nature of how the country was constructed is private ownership and the nature of being able to call someplace yours. And it's structured in our DNA as carried over from the old countries. And for that, it defines a community, the types of small businesses that create jobs, real jobs that help people pay the bills and live in homes. It's corporations and that take up residency and provide significant amount of jobs. It's real estate parks and open space. It's municipal grounds. It's cemeteries. It's all of that, and it comes together in a unique fabric to shape what that community is, and its quality, how it's maintained and managed, how it's seen from the outside, and how it's perceived by those that are in the neighborhoods. Is important to character, to self-awareness, to a whole host of things, and then even for investment. And so it's a delicate balance all over to make sure that the resources are there, the opportunities, can be fulfilled, and all that delicate balance of people perceiving it, those that live here and those that are thinking about investing or living here, perceive it as the right place to make that investment. In many cases, it's somebody's greatest investment of their entire life is to buy a piece of property, small business wise or home wise. And so it's a big leap. And so you've got to put all that together in the fabric of a community. Some of it has government influence, some of it doesn't. Some of it's private property and people's care and desire to invest in their own properties. And so it's an important piece of it. It's not everything. But by the nature of kind of the way we parcel up land and call it ours, it's an important part of a community.
Now, nowadays we have, different opportunities, I like to say, where we have needs for affordable housing, right? We need also pathways for home ownership for our residents and stuff. Now, we live in a capitalistic society, right? Where if I sell this drink for $12, but it costs me $2 to make, is it the place of the government? Is it the place of the business owner to say, no, you can only sell this for $8 because our residents can only afford $8 a glass? You know what I'm saying? So
I think free market's important. And the person that's putting that drink before you is spending a tremendous amount of time to draw on those clients, to give them an environment they love to be in, to give them the type of food and benefits that they would expect for paying for the bill at the end. And so the price is dictated by both that and the market. If that drink's being paid $12 here, but being offered next door at $8, that's market pressure, right? So market forces at work, quality that you're putting forward. It's no different in if you try to extrapolate that to society as a whole. Housing is a basic need. And market forces might say that apartment has got to be rented out at $2,500. That's a peak of market. And so a private property owner is incentivized to charge market. They got investments, they got mortgages, they got all these things they got to pay attention to, upkeep and all these things. So they want to go to market. Where government steps in is to understand that market can't satisfy all the needs. And government says, in some cases, they say, look, you've got a disability, you've got a challenge, and we know that you're never going to be able to, because of life circumstances, get to an earning potential that's going to allow you to pay the entire bill there. You probably can pay some. And so government says, but we want that roof over your head, and we think obviously you're an important part of society, an important person in the world, and we want to give you that opportunity. So they'll come in with a voucher, and that's generally the feds in the state, and they'll help that person be able to achieve market rents because they'll pick up a certain percentage of it that goes right to the landlord, and then that person's going to pay what they can afford. And so government's going to be there to, in the cases where market forces are going to exclude, they're going to work with private sector and local government to try to give those resources to those that need them in creative ways. So, for instance, like WIN will work with federal and state, private, city government, and create affordable housing. What we'll do is we'll create mixed income so that there'll be a flight of apartments that are market rate. So they'll go right to the top of market and they'll be worth that. There'll be a middle income flight of apartments, and those will be for people between 80 to 120 of area median income. And there might be like a $300 discount. And then you'll have those at 60% AMI or less. And those are the ones that get deep subsidy. And so what they do is they assist us with the capital to build it. In exchange for that capital to help us build it, those rents are going to be discounted. So the middle income apartments are going to be $300-400 less than market. The subsidized 60% or less may only be 30% of their income. That's all they'll charge. So if they make $1,000, they'll only pay $300 rent. But we have to put restrictions on those apartments when we build them with that money, and then we have to provide reports. We can be audited, and we have to follow the guidelines associated with the dollars that helped us invest in the property and bring it to standard. And so Wynn has carved a specialty out from Arthur Wynn forward. So he started back in the late 1970s. Some of his first projects, Coast Pond Village was one of his first projects in Worcester. And then also one out in Salem, Mass called Pequot. And he has brought an organization along, and now taken over by his son, and I'm part of the organization, that understands the complexities of those, understands the complexity of the real estate market, the broader economy, and then what the needs are. So we'll work really closely with the community and stakeholders, housing advocates and all. What are the needs here? And then we'll tailor a project or program around that and produce the type of housing the community desires. And so in some cases, like the Boys Club project in Lincoln Square, they asked us, could you do 100% senior citizen, like 55 and older, I qualify now, senior citizen, senior housing project. And so it's 100% affordable in that building. And so there'll be almost 90 apartments built that, someone may only pay 30% of their Social Security check to pay for that housing. And because they helped us, the government, federal and state, pay for the capital to fix everything up, we'll charge those rents for a period. Typically, it's as long as our mortgage might be 40 years that we have to monitor and only charge them those rents. Okay. In exchange for the capital, we structure the properties and rents accordingly. And
how do you think we keep this balance of keeping Worcester, with its residents have been here for generations or whatever the case may be, and with this newfound blood that we've kind of found, where people in Boston maybe are paying $3,000 for a 2-bedroom, $5,000,
$5,000 to $6,000. Yeah.
So then they see what they can either buy or rent here in Worcester, and it's a no-brainer for them.
Right.
But these people, it's called gentrification, right?
No question.
How do we have a delicate balance between gentrification and keeping Worcester woo?
Again, a great question. I think it goes to data and information, informed advocacy. So it's important that people in the community that feel that passion to keep Worcester as that melting pot, as a place for new faces and new energy to come in, and also, support and be there for the residents that have been there forever. And that in itself is a delicate balance, but you can pull it off. So you get the data, you get the advocacy, and then you've got to have government listening. So in any project that's going to happen here, they're going to intersect with government, in this case, city government. And in that process, city government has to say, we just did a housing study, and we know we need, I'm making up a number, 6,000 affordable housing units. And some of those could be workforce housing, you know, that 80 to 120 AMI. And then it's a negotiation because the developer has certain expectations. They got mortgages, that they have money they got to take from the bank. They got to do a series of things. And so that interaction, which is typically friendly, creates the dialogue that allows elected leaders and appointed leaders to reflect the needs of the community. And then what's ultimately constructed contributes to that need and also the long-term goals. And so you can get there in that listening so that you're providing, in this case, we're talking about housing, but really anything, so that it reflects the community's demographics and what they see the trends going forward are. Because inevitably for Worcester, if you want to meet all needs, in my mind, you can't just have market rate, right? Because that's going to be the ones coming from Boston that are happy to pay $2,500 versus $6,000.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be a market rate product. But there's going to be those that are part of this community, have been forever, but can't ever pay, in this case, say $2,500, $3,000 in Worcester down the new market, but can pay $1,700, $1,800. You know, they're working hard. They're a family of four. And so there's that workforce component. And then, you know, there's going to be those that even hardworking families and those with physical challenges and a lot of others that are going to need even more help. Yeah. And I think that's the place of government. And it's, again, a delicate balance because market rate and workforce certainly help local economy because people are going out with disposable income coming into Havana Nights. But you also got to be thinking about that it takes a lot of different incomes, it takes a lot of different perspectives, it takes a lot of different cultures and ethnicities and races to make a wonderful, vibrant city like Worcester is. So you got to be inclusive.
Yeah, it's not an easy job. I mean, I salute to all of the public servants out there, regardless of what committee you volunteer on or that you're elected to. Hats off goes to you guys because literally it is almost a thankless job, you know, where you can't ever make everybody happy, and there's always going to be somebody's heart that you're going to break, you know. Yeah. But you guys are doing an incredible job. Where you know, as a person who's lived across this country, you know, every time that I move and I come back, just to see the progress, not just in the different businesses or the different structures that are being built, but to me, it's the temperature of the people. Yeah. And I've never seen so many people loving Worcester, being proud of being from Worcester, awesome. Advocating for Worcester, you know.
As it should be, right? It's for too long we self-deprecated in the shadow of Boston and Providence, and at times ignoring the amazing assets and attributes and wonder of the community we have. And I think we've shaken that dust off. Yeah. And, you know, right now we surpass Providence in population. I think they're in the decline. They're like in the 180s, and we're over 200,000, and they have nowhere near the amount of economic activity. That's right. And the stabilization in neighborhoods and the elected leadership and appointed leadership that get it, that are working hard side by side with private folks. So it's a special place. Yeah. You can just go by cocktail parties you go to. There'll be all strata of Worcester at that. There'll be CEOs of major corporations next to small business owners, next to neighborhood advocates, next to some of those advocacy groups from all walks of life, all sitting, talking, and there's no, oh, no, I'm sorry, you came in the wrong door. You know, you have them escorted out. Yeah. People are happy to sit there and talk and chat. There's a cordiality to it. There's a camaraderie here. And I'd still say it's a place you can have discussion and deliberation and honest debate that people can still walk away respecting that opinion may differ, but I think it's still a place where that healthy conversation can take place.
So, Brian, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, informing us, shedding some light on some of the times where maybe we weren't seeing behind the scenes of the development of Worcester, that these were the seeds that were planted in the early 2000s that we're seeing fruit today, nowadays, with, as we know, the redevelopment of downtown, now that we have these big companies like the Woosocks and the ballpark, the Amazons that are here, and things like that. So
and a small business owner, Havana Nights that see this as a place to put their roots down, to spend their money, to put their livelihoods on the line, to take a chance. And that's a wonderful thing.
Awesome. Well, my name is Ambitious Angelo. I am the host of Stories from the Woo. We are highlighting stories of individuals in our community, not just their stories, but telling the story of our city through our people. So stay tuned. We have a lot more coming. We have some more guests, and Like I said, my name is Ambitious Angelo. This is Michael Bryan. Stay ambitious, my friends.